All right, let's have a chat about clematis. Everyone seems to have a story about one they've killed. They see these incredible photos of cottage walls just dripping with flowers. They buy a sad looking stick in a pot, and a year later it's still a sad looking stick or it's gone. There's this myth that they're fussy, fragile, and just waiting for an excuse to die. And honestly, it's nonsense. Complete nonsense. They are some of the toughest, most resilient climbers you can grow, provided you get a few things right at the very start. And I mean the very star. People obsess over pruning groups and fancy fertilizers, but they're missing the point. The secret, too, a clematis that lives for 50 years that you can basically ignore isn't in a bottle. It's in the groundwork. So today I'm not going to give you varieties. Instead, I'm going to show you the 5 secrets, the actual techniques that make these plants practically indestructible. Forget the labels, forget the complicated advice. Do these 5 things and you'll have clematis that thrives on neglect. Right? Secret number 1. And if you only listen to one thing I say today, make it this. It's all about the planting hole. I know it sounds boring, but this is where 90% of people go wrong. They dig a hole just big enough for the pot, shove the plant in, and wonder why it sulks. No, you need to think of this not as a hole, but as the plant's home for the next 50 years. I'm talking about digging a hole at least 2 feet deep and 2 feet wide. Yes, really, it seems like overkill for a tiny plant, but you're creating a reservoir of good soil and drainage that the roots can explore for years. Most people don't realize that clematis roots can go down a surprisingly long way searching for moisture. When you dig that massive hole, you break up all the compacted builders, rubble, and nasty subsoil. Then you fill it back in, but you mix what you took out with a huge amount of compost, well-rotted manure, and a handful of great for drainage. You're creating a 5-star hotel for roots. The one mistake I constantly is people planting it flush with the soil level. Don't do that. Plant it deep. The crown of the plant where the stems meet the roots should be good 4 to 6 inches below the final soil level. This is your insurance policy. It protects the dormant buds underground from frost from getting snapped by the dog, and most importantly, it encourages the plant to send up multiple new stems from below the ground, which is the key to avoiding the clematis wilt. Okay, secret number 2 is the one bit of classic advice that is absolutely true, but people don't really understand the why. A sunny head and cool feet, we've all heard it. But it's not just a quaint saying. Clematis roots are incredibly sensitive to being baked by the sun. If the soil surface gets too hot and dry, the plant just shuts down. It stops growing, the leaves get crispy, and it looks miserable. It's a survival mechanism. It thinks it's in a desert. So keeping the root run cool is non-negotiable. The easiest way? Mulch a really thick layer, maybe 4 or 5 inches of bark chips, compost, or even straw. This acts like a blanket, insulating the soil from the sun's heat and, as a bonus, holding in moisture. But my favorite method, the one you see in those beautiful old cottage gardens, is using other plants as living shade. Plant a low-growing perennial right in front of the clematis, something like a geranium, an alchemilla mollis, or even a heuchera. They create a canopy of leaves that completely shades the ground. Honestly, it works better than any mulch. You can also just use a big flat stone or a broken bit of paving slabby placed over the root zone. It looks quite rustic and does the job perfectly. The key is just to stop the sun from directly hitting and baking the soil where those precious roots are trying to establish. Now for the secret that feels the most wrong. It's going to hurt, but you have to trust me on this. It's the first year haircut. So you've planted your new clematis. It's growing away. Maybe it's even produced a flower or 2 on its 1 or 2 spindly stems. You're feeling proud. Then the following spring, usually around February or March, just as you see the first buds swell, you have to cut it back hard. And I mean hard. You cut every single of those stems down to about foot from the ground, just above pair of healthy looking buds. It feels like vandalism. It feels like you're undoing all that progress. But this is the single most important prune you will ever give the plant. The reason is simple. You're trading few flowers in year 1 for magnificent multi-stemmed plant for the next 50 years. Cutting it back like this forces the plant to stop putting energy into upward growth and instead focus on base. It will send up a whole bunch of new, strong shoots from below the soil level. The mistake everyone makes is being too timid. They let those 1 or 2 original stems grow, and they end up with plant that's bare at the bottom with sad little tuft of flowers 10 feet up wall. That hard first year prune is what creates bushy, full plant right from the ground up. It's the foundation for proper display. Right? Let's get controversial. Secret number 4, prune groups are mostly A lie? Okay, not a star, lie star, but they are the single biggest thing that intimidates people and stops them from growing clematis. Group 1, Group 2, Group 3. It's confusing, and for most gardeners, it is completely unnecessary. Unless you're a specialist collector growing very specific, rare varieties, you can forget it. It drives me mad when I see paralyzed with fear, terrified of making the wrong cut. So here is the simplified, foolproof method that works for 95% of the clematis you're likely to buy. It's the half and half method. Every spring, maybe late February, you go out to your plant. You cut half of the stems back hard, down to about 2 feet from the ground. Then you take the other half of the stems and just tidy them up, cutting them back by maybe third, just to the point where you see good, strong buds. What does this do? The hard prune stems will produce fresh growth that flowers later in the summer. The lightly pruned stems will flower earlier on last year's wood. So you get longer flowering season, fuller plant, and you've removed a bunch of old tangled growth. You never have to remember if it's Jack Mini Eye or Nellie Moser. You just do the same thing every year. It keeps the plant vigorous, prevents it from becoming tangled mess, and guarantees flowers. It's the ultimate low-stress approach. And finally, secret number 5. This is the easiest one of all. Learn the power of benign neglect. After that first year of getting it established, the best thing you can do for your clematis is, for the most part, to leave it alone. So many plants are killed with kindness. People fuss over them. They feed them with high potash tomato feed every week. They water them every single day. Stop. You're drowning it and burning its roots with fertilizer. A clematis, once its roots are down deep in that beautifully prepared planting hole we made, is incredibly drought tolerant. It can find its own water unless you're in a prolonged severe drought for weeks on end. Don't water it. Let it be. As for feeding, that big load of compost and manure you put in the planting hole will keep it happy for years. And maybe, just maybe, give it a sprinkle of rose food in the spring and a mulch of compost, but that's it. Honestly, they thrive on a bit of toughness. You'll notice the flowers are often more intense in color on. A plant that isn't pumped full of nitrogen, bees and other pollinators will find it regardless. The only time to intervene is if you see obvious signs of distress, like major all-over wilting that doesn't recover overnight. Otherwise, step back. Your job was to give it the best possible start in life. Now trust it to get on with it. That's how you get a plant that never dies.